because between Kira 4.5 and 4.6, they changed a few.
So I'm putting it on my personal, and then how do I do that? I need to go into here, switch to that account.
What you're doing? I don't know what you're doing.
I'm logging into 3D Make It.
Why?
So I can post there.
Oh, you don't have to do it right now, because I mean, 5 viewers now. I suppose we could post our awesome like mounting bracket.
Whoa, why are we back? Oh, stupid. Hi, I'm Greg,
Hey, David.
and welcome to 3D Make It. We're finally doing a live stream.
Yeah, it's been a while. We started it just in time for my furnace to kick on. So sorry, y'all. We live in Canada. It's kind of chilly today. Furnace is on.
It's all good, all good.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a while. This whole incident has definitely thrown wrenches into timelines and everything for everybody. So, but to kick it all off, we would like to say a big thank you to all of you guys out there who are subscribed to the YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We just crossed the 3,000
Woohoo!
subscriber
All
mark on
right.
YouTube. So it's a pretty big, it's a milestone that we never expected to hit so fast. Or really, I mean, we're not in this for the fame or glory. We just love 3D printing, and that's why we're here. So
Absolutely.
um, yeah, so thank you guys for following and keep sending in those comments and in the chat and everything like that.
And we'll try to keep content coming on a more regular basis because this summer, this year, 2020 has been kind of crazy.
Yeah, all you have to say is 2020, right? And people understand.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, we thought we'd do a little bit of an update of kind of stuff that's been going on with us. I've been doing lots of stuff with my family and did a few renos around the house, put in windows, and so I've just my weekends were very tied up and
Hmm.
whatnot, and work's been pretty steady, and so now I think I'll have a little more time to focus on 3D printing and getting back into the swing of things. How about you?
Hooray, swing. Yeah, um, I mean, everybody probably knows because we say it often enough, but we both work in education. We are not teachers, though. We are technology professionals.
Yep.
And as you can imagine, our jobs have become exponentially busy um, since about March last year in Canada, and it hasn't really let off yet. But so lots of work, lots of fun times there. And I guess in the summer we try to go camping here or there, and I did put out a video where I was sitting on my lovely deck out at the campsite. So I got out a few times, and then work consumed the rest of the summer, and
Yeah.
um, yeah, and veterinary visits and sick kitties, and it's been a weird summer, but hey, we're allowed to have weird summers, so
Well, I think it's going to be weird for a while.
yep,
Yeah. Well,
such is the way.
let's just go through some news and stuff and what has been updated. So, Marlin is updated. So I'm going to switch to my screen share here.
Hmm.
And you can see Marlin 2.0.7 is out officially. And there's a number of new features. There's some new features. There's some new boards. They now have full support for the Chiron's board and screen. Um, and there's a number of fixes to various other boards. Holy cow, have they added a bunch of LCD controllers now? Like support.
Well,
They've put some
LCD controllers are like weeds now, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. But they've added like not only normal support. Some of them had their own custom Marlin commands that they're sending to the custom board. They put a whole layer in there to basically translate those commands so that Marlin can now, when you say that it's a try Gorilla screen, when it says like 8,000, it actually says whatever G29 or whatever. So they've put a whole translation layer in there to make them compatible with Marlin, which is pretty cool. It'd be nice if everyone just standardized their screens.
Yep.
But yeah, and then there's a whole bunch of various patches and fixes and whatnot. And I just flashed this last night, and it went really well. It compiled nicely and worked wonderfully. So
Sweet. I think the other big thing, like most of the planet, either they own a Prusa or you own an Ender 3. And the big change in Marlin actually was for the Ender 3 V2. They have now fixed the bug where the power loss feature wasn't working.
yeah, the
So,
I was actually up
yay.
in Calgary the other day, and apparently in the forums and whatnot, a lot of people in the first batch of the Ender 3 V2s, there was a faulty power switch, and
Yep.
there's been a lot of issues. So they've been having recalls and replacing power switches because they were faulty right from the get-go. So hopefully, if you're having problems with your Ender V2, contact who you bought it from, and they'll probably be able to send you out a replacement switch.
Yeah,
Really
and that's a
quickly.
really good point too, is contact who you bought it from. Reaching out to Creality is okay, but the longest way to get support. So if you bought it from Amazon, from a reseller, right?
Yep.
Contact them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. The next thing we're gonna just touch on is Fusion 360.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they've changed the free license again, the home license. Now,
Which shouldn't have been a shock to anybody.
no, really,
If you were surprised by this,
they need to make money. They need to pay for their product. They did walk back one of the features that they took out, so you can now still export your stuff and save your stuff to Step, which they had taken a bunch of the features out and just left it to, like, your standard STL and whatnot, but you could still save as STL, but now you can do that. And then they've limited the number of models you can have active. You can still
10.
archive models that you're not using and whatnot, but they limited the active ones. The other thing, if you are in education, make sure you get the education license because it's full featured and it's not crippled at all. So, which is really nice. But there is also a big sale. I think it's 40% off for the life
Yeah,
of
40
your
right now.
subscription or something right now.
Yeah, I saw it pop up. I haven't looked too terribly much into it, but yeah, it's a 40% off and away you go. And so it cuts it down quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's I guess the overall arching comment would be, if you're using Fusion 360 and you've ever sold a model out of Fusion 360, or if you're a company, like even small, like I know lots of YouTubers like to use Fusion 360, and I'm not sure what the licensing looks like there either, but like when we're talking using Fusion 360 and you're going to use it to produce something for sale, Fusion has been kind enough to say, hey, if you're making under $100,000, you can still use the personal
Now,
license.
yeah, they do.
But
They
I
do.
mean, in the end, it's something that they offer, that lower tier for hobbyists and non business, but they don't have to,
Yeah.
because as soon as you start doing and making it for, like not fixing your lazy Susan at home or your fridge, you are using that to make money for someone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
they did say that there is, like, if you're an influencer, like you could get a special license. But if you are an influencer and you're a YouTuber, then you probably want to use the same thing that your viewers are using. So having the fancier features and whatnot, you can't necessarily help the people that are watching maybe for a tutorial or whatnot, because
Mhm.
you might show them something that they can't utilize. So,
Well,
so
yeah, it's important to remember too that the base functionality of Fusion, for 3D modeling anyway, like the sketching and that stuff hasn't changed, but they've removed a lot of the fun premium features, shall we call
yeah,
them? So like exporting to toolpaths, if you're running a CNC machine has changed. You can't do the simulations anymore. You have to buy the credits, and that kind of stuff. So it's they're still offering it for free, but there's a very good reason for them stripping back to the license of or to the feature set of the free license, and that's because have you ever it's a loss leader, right?
hmm
Like
oh
it's
yeah,
it's it's something now that it's going to be extended trial version basically until you get to the point where you're like, fine, I need to do this. Either I'm going to convert or it's I got to switch software, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and there's tons of cat out there,
Oh, there is,
tons.
and what's interesting is like the some of the advanced features most people aren't going to use, but they're pretty cool.
No,
But
yeah.
unless you're if you're a big machine shop, you're going to use them,
Mhm.
and or
Then you should buy Fusion.
and then and you know what? If you look at the price, I think is it like $4.99 US for a year subscription or something?
I think so.
Yeah,
I'll
and
jump in
and
there and look.
and if you are a business and whatnot, like $500 for your staff to be productive is nothing. So anyway,
Yeah, and I mean,
yeah.
it looks like it's $80 a month. You can get a 1 year subscription right now for 387 Canadian.
Okay, and then 40% off.
And yeah, well, that's the that is 40% off because the regular price is almost
Oh, okay,
$700.
got it.
And then you can also get the 40% off the 3 year term. So you could buy Fusion for $1,000 for 3 years.
Okay, there you go.
So yeah, I mean, is it worth it? Like a great example of something that's getting ousted from Fusion would be uh, Tom Sadlandinger. I'm sorry, I probably butchered his name, but like he did that video where he built bookshelves using the simulation and advanced calculation module,
Yeah,
and that's something that is gone. So
I think
if you're working with fluid dynamics
yeah,
and stressing,
but you got to realize that for if everyone was working on that stuff, it's not doing that locally on your computer. They have a cloud service in the background that is crunching those numbers and doing that simulation, so it doesn't take 9 months to do on your computer. So they do need to pay for those advanced features somehow, and they can't give those away for free. Now, would it be nice if you could just do a trial or try it out and see if that's going to work for you? I think that's the way to do it. Is have some sort of trial basis for someone who wants to go from maybe the home version to that version. And I think that would
right.
be a good way of doing it. But I think we should
And then,
move on to our next topic, unless you have something to add for that.
um, not really. I guess the only thing to really add would be Fusion is not the only CAD software that Autodesk makes.
Absolutely.
Inventor is another one.
Yep.
Um, and just to put it into perspective, and then we'll move on. A 1 year subscription cost to Inventor is $2,700.
Yeah. And then AutoCAD's probably even more.
Yep. So Fusion is all of them rolled into one, and that's kind of what they're trying to get towards.
Yeah.
So yeah, but good chats on Fusion. If you have comments or questions or just want to call us idiots because of our opinions, leave them down in the comments there, or if you're on the stream, you can pop into the chat.
Yeah.
But yeah,
All right.
we will move on.
All right. So printer safety checkups. All right, this was your topic, and I'm sure I got a few things to say, and I'll let you start.
Yeah. So lots of people have been getting into the hobby as of recent, if because of the incident. We can actually say the name now, but it's more fun to call it the incident.
The
Um,
apocalypse.
the apocalypse. Yeah, there you go. And lots of new people in the field, but this is important for us veterans too. If you've had your printer for a few years, Greg and I were just chatting actually yesterday, and I know he's going to bring something surprise up, and I'm not going to ruin that for him. But the we were talking about how the power cable on my CR10S, when I moved rooms, the cable that powers the hotbed somehow got kinked, and I know it's just a kink, so it's safe, but safety checkups on your printer, regular intervals are important. So,
Yep.
I mean, what do you check? That's the question, right? Like you can look at the printer and it's sitting there and it looks fine. Well, the things to check are where all the power lines go to start,
Yep.
right? So you want to make sure there's no kinks, there's no curves, the bed hasn't pulled funny on the power cable that loops around back. If you have a printer that has a little bit floppy of a power cable inside the to the bed, you might want to consider build and we talked about it too, right? Printing the strain relief just to keep that curve nice and yeah, Greg's been printing those like a mad person. Well, not mad, but he's been printing them. And then the other thing to check, now I know some of us have more custom build printers out there, like the SX4 or the can't remember the name of it, Horvat maybe. I'm not sure, but the point with those is if you do not have a continuous cable connecting one thing to another thing. This goes for the original Enders and Ender 3s, right? I think the V2 is the same. If you have a connector between two power cables, always check that connector every print, just to make sure that there's no signs of burning, scorching, heating, melting, or warping,
Yep.
right?
And I've seen a ton of pictures online of people on some of the Facebook groups where
Mhm.
they're like, "Is this normal?" And then they'll have their plastic shroud and it's all blackened. I'm like, "No, that's
Burnt.
not
Yeah.
normal."
No.
So,
Mhm.
like you said, anywhere where there's continuous movement and strain, so bed, power connector, just inspect it. Like even heat up the bed, heat up the hot
Yep.
end, feel the cable. If David has a kink in his, if he heats up
Yeah.
the cable and he puts his fingers on that kink and the kink is hot, I think it's
Yeah.
time to deal with that. If
And
it,
that's not an uncommon
yeah,
problem either.
if
The kinked cable
yeah, if
is
it's
out
not
there.
warm, you're probably fine. So just inspect it, double check, make
Yep.
sure everything's good. Make sure that your eccentric nuts are adjusted correctly.
Mhm.
A lot of people, they'll print and print and print and print, and all of a sudden, like the vibration and continuous motion will loosen things up. So
Yep.
check the wheels on your gantry, check the
Yep.
wheels on your every all over. Does your bed wobble? If it does, tighten your eccentric nut. Just give it a little turn, get the wheel a little closer. It'll pull everything nice and tight, and
Mhm.
and away you go. And a lot of it's overlooked so many times, and we'll have an example of that a little bit later.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the other people might wonder why tightening belts and nuts and eccentric nuts and making sure there's no wobble belts or that is safety, because if your printer fails in any way, your printer is a dumb thing. Your printer is not smart. Your printer does exactly what the G code tells it to. So you could end up throwing a belt, and if that print continues and it's not moving in one direction, you're going to get blob mountain. And blob mountain can become dangerous for several reasons. Um, the PLA, the ABS, the ASA, the PETG that come out of there are designed to come out of the nozzle and not touch the hot end anymore. It's a very quick extrusion, right? But if you get a blob around your hot end of ABS, now you're releasing all that lovely off-gassing and
Yeah.
nanoparticles, and PLA does it too, right? So those are safety issues. The other, the one last safety checkup pro tip would be if you do have connectors in your system, specifically like the Ender 3's um, remote control or the remote control connector. What is it, RG60 or something like that? I forget the name of it off the top of my head. But that little yellow connector, get rid of it. Take that whole cable out, go to the board, and just run it. Go to the hardware store, grab a piece of cable. What is it, 16 gauge? I
Mm,
forget the.
yeah, it could be, or it could be 12.
It's either something that matches the thickness of that wire would be perfect. And then you just run one wire instead of the connector. And then while you're in there looking at the wiring, open your boards up, look at the control board, check all the terminals where all the wires connect to, make sure there's no black or burning.
Well,
And
and
doing
and
that
blow it out.
is
Like
yep,
there could
keep
be
dust off.
you know if you have one of the original enders, it had the fan in the top,
Hmm.
and sometimes even though it was
Yeah.
supposed to be blowing air,
Yeah.
it would suck stuff in. So just
Yep.
make sure you've got it cleaned up and good airflow and whatnot. So yeah.
Yep. Be safe.
General maintenance. It's like a car. You can't
Stay
you could
alert.
drive it until it falls apart and then get another one, or you can take care of it.
That's my favorite method is taking care of it because then it lasts longer.
Yeah. All right. Next topic
Yeah,
is what board's the right board, and I think that's very subjective.
totally is. And the answer is going to be subjective
Yeah.
too. But we get asked a ton in the comments, what board should I use in this printer? I wanna upgrade my board. Well, first you have to define the word upgrade because if your printer's running with your current board, I don't think upgrade is the proper term to apply unless you're going to um, go to Trinamic drivers. If you're not running Trinamic drivers, like on an original Ender 3, 3 Pro, I think I'm not sure, does the V2 come with the silent board?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but if you're running non-silent drivers, that's a big reason to move up.
Yeah.
So
I would agree.
that would be an upgrade, right? But if you're just gonna get a board to replace a board, not an upgrade.
Yeah. No, I would agree that drivers is a reason to upgrade to
Mhm.
quiet down your printer, and
And
that's the
yeah,
biggest upgrade I think you can do. Is it'll there's other benefits besides just being quiet. It'll get rid of that salmon skin.
mhm,
It will
right.
there
Artifacting. Yeah.
artifacting. You can, if depending on which board you can get, you can dynamically adjust your drivers. You don't need to fiddle with the pot anymore to adjust your voltage on your drivers with the Trinamic. So there's reasons there. Um,
Mhm.
32-bit versus 8-bit.
Meh.
Yeah, it helps a little bit, but not a lot. I think the biggest advantage that some boards like some of the newer duets and whatnot have is they actually have a floating point processor
Mhm.
portion on their CPU on there, so it can actually calculate the math rather like very quickly and do arcs and whatnot, so it smooths things
Mhm.
out. Whereas this right now, the 32-bit chips that we currently have on like the SKR boards and whatnot, the current gen don't have that floating point. They're 32-bit. They have more memory. You can enable every feature under the sun, and
Yep.
they don't slow down. You don't have to worry about running out of memory. There's been some glitches with EEPROM, the emulation versus hardware
Yeah.
EEPROM and stuff like that. But I think the moving forward, if we're going to kind of look at future stuff, I think we're going to see the newer ARM chips with the coprocessors,
Hmm.
and I think then you'll see Marlin will implement that, and then we'll get probably a lot fancier features, and that might eliminate some of the stuff that the drivers are influencing now versus the processor, because you can probably do some funky magic in between to improve your print quality, and maybe we'll even see the planar stuff come out.
Yeah, um, for sure. And um, the the I guess when you're upgrading a board, here's like Greg said, there's lots of math to consider and speed of the board, but here's 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 the real breakdown. The boards can think faster, your printer stepper drivers can't move faster.
This
Right?
is true.
So you're still governed by the speed of your printer, which 8-bit boards usually never peaked, right? Like the Ender in theory could print up to 200 millimeters per second if the math could be provided in theory. Right? You probably don't want to do
If it
it if
doesn't
you can avoid
fly
it.
apart first.
Yeah, you send your hot end through the wall. So what's the right board for your printer? Well, one, don't. I'm not going to tell you which ones don't or do buy, but match the stepper count of the board to the number of steppers on your printer. So, for example, if you have a CR10S, the CR10S has two Z steppers, right? An extruder, an X, and a Y. So that's this many. I did the math on my hand,
Yeah.
right? So when you're looking at a board, you should be looking at something that has those five steppers, which is like Greg just got an SKR 1.4. Was it the turbo or the
It
pro?
was the
Or
turbo.
yeah, right. I use those weren't out when I was on my shopping spree, so I have 1.3s.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with either of them. They both work
I
fine.
have
And
1.3s also.
right, like they're good.
Mm-hmm.
What I wouldn't run out and do, and Greg, you can jump in if you want, but there are certain companies, TH3D, that sells silent stepper boards for like $110. Maybe avoid that
Yeah.
because like an SKR 1.4 with a full set of drivers, American is probably like $54, if that.
Yeah, it's you're upgrading now for boards are so inexpensive. So
Hmm.
again, if you fried a driver, upgrade your board. If you want to quiet your printer,
Upgrade your
upgrade your
board.
board. You know, and one of the biggest upgrades you can do on like a CR10 or whatnot is
Hmm.
the CR10 was using a shared Z stepper.
And 10S. Yep.
Yeah, and the V2 also.
Hmm.
Now, if you separate that out, there's an additional command you can do in Marlin that'll auto level your gantry.
Hmm.
So you can square up your gantry to and make it perpendicular to your bed automatically with a G34 command, and you cannot do that on if you're sharing two steppers to one stepper driver. You just because you can't run them independently.
Right.
So that
And
that would be that would in that case that would be an upgrade. Even if you went to you didn't go to silent drivers, just adding that separate stepper and using that tool would be an upgrade.
yeah. And um, the reason that Creality leaves off those extra and does run them together is because it saves them like $1. It's cheaper to make that board for them to pump out all
Yeah.
those printers.
And a
So
dollar when you're selling a million boards is $1 million. So I understand.
maybe they could send $1 million to me.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, what board's the right board? Look for something that's not too expensive. Don't don't be afraid to look on AliExpress at the SKR store. I'm not saying SKR is the best, but there's like F Sync Tech. There's a bunch on there that are good, and they will run your printer just
Yeah.
dandy.
Yeah.
And then match the number of steppers to the number of stepper motors you have. If you're looking for quiet stepper drivers, there is nothing wrong with the 2208 or 2209 stuff.
I agree. Um,
Either one is a great choice, and Marlin supports them. So that's my thought on how to pick a board.
all right. Well, our next topic is let's skip to the one after that one, because it kind of goes.
Okay.
So BL Touch or not to BL Touch? That is the question. Now, I I had a very good experience with the Ender 3 without a BL Touch. It worked really well, and the only thing I really did was put heavier springs on it, and once I had it level, it stayed level really for quite a long time. Like, but I did put a BL Touch on it,
Shocking.
and why? It's quite nice to have a nice level surface, and if it's slightly warped, have it actually corrected a bit and whatnot. So I do like a BL Touch. I have tried the clones, the 3D Touch, and the clones seem to have a weaker winding or something because they drop their pin during print all the time. Like if you're doing a long print and you don't have a BL Touch, the chance, like, I'm not saying you won't ever drop a pin on a BL Touch, but I have wrecked more prints with a 3D Touch than I have with a BL Touch. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and the pin dropped more on a BL Touch in the version 2 and 1.
Yep.
Like when you get to the higher version, like the 3 and beyonds here, they do work. And Greg's legitimately tried the 3D Touch. I think that was Triangle Labs.
I've tried a number of different ones. I think they're all made by the same.
Magic Touch. Remember Magic Touch?
Yeah, I've tried the black ones. I've tried the clear ones. I've tried the clear ones that are got the clear pin that's identical to the BL Touch, and honestly, for the I think it's $30 more, maybe something like that.
You save your money, right? Because you're going to be buying a BL Touch in the end.
Well, if you're wrecking prints left, right, and center, the amount of material you're going to waste, eventually you're going to pay for it. So I would go for a legit BL Touch if I'm putting one on a printer. So
definitely, yeah. I'm much the same way. I've had my CR10S for years since that model was released. That's when I bought it. No BL Touch. I level it twice a year, and the trick to getting away with leveling it not very often is the removable build surfaces, because you're not yarding on the printer trying to get prints unstuck, right? So but would we recommend a BL Touch, and why? Well, yeah, because they're awesome. But yeah, Greg has the flex plate there. But I think one of the biggest reasons to advocate for a BL Touch is if you want to print and you can't be around to start the print. So if you're trying to print remotely from somewhere else and you just want to hit send G-code, go, and print, BL Touch is probably the only way to guarantee your print will start.
Yep.
Okay, well, an auto leveling system that doesn't suck.
Yeah, I'm sure. there are other printers that have good leveling systems that don't suck too. So,
for sure.
I'm not saying that the BL Touch is the be all end all, but it's definitely one of the best, and I like it a lot.
It's one of the easiest ones for somebody to add, right? Because you don't have to worry about like the one on the Prusa, the inductive sensors, right?
Yeah.
Those are a little more finicky to set up, and you have to have a specific plate, and there's lots of rules.
Yeah, unless you're running a Prusa, and then it just works.
Yeah. In which case, you should get one, right?
All right. Well, let's slip back to the topic I skipped over. Was why we prefer the Pi for remote printing, because that kind of segues into it anyway.
Yeah, why the Pi remote printing? As you can tell by our videos, I like the Pi a lot. Um, and I know that there are proponents out on other channels that don't like the Pi. They say only ever print from the SD card because um, the transfer rate between a Pi through the USB cable is actually slower at sending the G code, to which I say, mm-mm. But I guess it comes down to the in a Raspberry Pi, I've only actually seen, and like, I don't know how many we actually manage, Greg. Well, we manage a lot of Raspberry
Well, in
Pis.
my house, I have three.
And I have five here, and then we have like six or four at work. I forget the actual number,
Yeah.
but we have a lot of Pis. In all those Raspberry Pis, how many SD cards did we actually burn out?
None.
One.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
that wasn't its SD. That wasn't the Pi's fault. It was actually a bad SD
Yeah.
card. So it didn't burn it out. How many SD cards do you think? Now this is a skill testing question for Greg because he doesn't know the answer. I don't think. I've never talked about it. How many SD cards has my CR10S burnt out?
8.
That's a little high. It was only like 4. Now, the reason for that is my good friend Static Electricity. I don't think it was the actual CR10 burning it out. I think it was the act of taking it out of the printer, putting it into the computer, walking downstairs, and then getting shocked every time I would touch the grounded metal case.
Well, and there's a mechanical process too involved in putting the card in and out. So
That little spring
yeah.
that goes click, click, click,
and
Yep.
some boards have friction, and I get that, but that mechanical process, you get it in a weird angle and whatnot, you can damage it. So
And you drop it in the printer.
yeah, and if you're
That's annoying.
if you're a casual printer user, you have one printer, and maybe you don't print daily. Okay, I get it. You put some stuff on an SD card and you're good. But if you've got a little tiny print farm going, and I've got 3 printers sitting side by side over here, and then I've got some printers over here. It's you want to be able to manage them, see what's going on, and you don't want to necessarily sit in the room all day watching your prints. So having cameras on them, and here I'll actually see if I can find the right view.
Gray's going Inception on us
All right. So I've got a few printers here. I've got cameras. I've got
You're ruining your surprise.
camera. So they're all set up with cameras, and I've got an ender over here with the camera. So I mean, you can always be able to monitor your printers very easily if you set it up right. So
Yep. And I mean, my setup's much the same. In fact, just picture everything he just showed, but at my house. Cameras on all of them, Raspberry Pis on all of them. We recently got a cool new toy for our Raspberry Pis, which make them a little more fun, I guess. But the reason I prefer and advocate for Raspberry Pi printing over the SD card is longevity of your SD card. And they're cheap, but you don't want one to go bad while you're printing. They will frazzle your G code. So you get rid of that problem. If you are remote printing, like Greg said, in a farm situation, and farm is a strong word because really one printer could be a farm for you, right? Like if you were printing those head things for masks and you were at work and you wanted to start one because somebody just said, hey, I want 5 ear saver things. You can be, yeah, okay, I'll do that here. And through the magic of the internet and port forwarding and dynamic DNS, you have access to your printer to start it, stop it, and stopping it is the other reason.
Yep.
If something goes wrong, you don't want your printer, one, to waste filament because it's just going to spaghetti.
Well, and
or blob up the hot end, right?
And that's also why I think David and myself both have smart plugs on our printers. So we can disable the printer remotely. Mm-hmm. If anything's going on, we can disable it. And that AstroPrint, like David was saying, like in previous videos and whatnot, is another choice if you want to remotely manage your print jobs and whatnot. And it allows you to have, 2 printers, David?
Yeah, two printers out there on the free account, and then it's $10 a month American. And yeah, folks, we say American a lot because we're in Canada, but everybody likes to price in American. Canada. How about that? So it's about $10, and it gives you, if you are not a networking person at home and you don't want to figure out remote access, it's the way to do it.
But if you're technical, go Octoprint. That's my opinion.
Even if you're not technical, watch our videos.
That's true.
Go Octoprint. There's not much.
I know a guy who puts out a video.
I'm not sure which. They're pretty okay. The other, we were just talking. Which way? I don't know. The other reason, I guess, we were talking about remote stopping with actual switches. If your printer is doing something terribly wrong, you can trigger a reboot of the Raspberry Pi, which will stop everything it's doing. So your Raspberry Pi it will leave the printer on, but as soon as you reboot the Pi mid-process, it stops sending G-code, which means the printer stops, which means everything turns off.
And it cools down.
Yeah. And then once the Pi reboots too, you can actually have like the movement, motion, temperature controls right back, like right away, without having to like wait for the interrupt command to actually happen if the printer actually recognizes it. So that's why we prefer the Pi.
All right. Well, we kind of
changed my mind, right?
We kind of combined a couple things together. So I think, how about we skip over to COVID Facebook stuff?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so right now a lot of people have got into 3D printing with whether it's doing PPE for people, this and that, and I've started to see more and more printers show up on Facebook for sale and at a variety of levels and whatnot. So if you are interested in 3D printing and maybe don't have a printer yet, that is a way to get into it. But then you're going to have to make sure that your printer's safe, like go through the safety stuff and whatnot that David and I were talking about earlier. And I want to show you a find that I got on Facebook. So the CR10 V2 right now is going for about $750 or $799 Canadian.
Yeah, in there, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this gentleman on Facebook was selling it and dropped his price to $160. He said it's not working right. I asked him what was wrong, and he took a picture and showed me, and I said, well, you just need to tighten your eccentric nut, right? Your eccentric nut, just tighten it. And he's like, oh, I did. I'm like, okay. And then I offered him what he wanted, the $160. And now, is this the right one? No. There we are. Oh. And now I have a CR10 V2. Now, this one, what was actually wrong with it was not much. The gantry, the eccentric nut was loose. So the whole gantry was moving. And so all I had to do was tighten the eccentric nut up. And then these were tightened down, but they weren't actually in the T-nuts weren't in the slot. So it was mainly, the issues were basic maintenance and assembly is why he was having the issues he was having with not great prints and whatnot. So
and I questioned the validity of those the golden triangle rods.
Yeah, I don't know if they do anything. Well, and it's actually missing. He didn't put on the nuts that need. There's supposed to be a nut that holds this in place on the top and bottom. There's one nut, so I've got to find some M6 nuts for that. But other than that, the nozzle, he was printing too close to the bed, so he's gouged the nice build surface. And the nozzle was filed right down, so I had to put a new nozzle on. But once I got the nozzle on and I leveled it properly, this thing is printing just beautifully. I've printed the cable chains that's going to go on it. I've printed a few benchies, and I'm going to do a video on exactly, the maintenance I did to get this all working. I've also upgraded it to Marlin 0.7. Updated like a dream because this one has the bootloader on it already, so you don't have to worry about that. So for $160 Canadian, so what's that, 35 cents US? I got a wonderful printer, and I also got this lovely boat anchor. I don't know if anyone's seen these, but they came out brand new last year. They're the Creality 3D viewer. Well, they're defunct. The server is no more. The app is no more. You can get the APK, but you can't get to the server, so you can't actually activate it and use it. So he had this and he threw it in. So basically, I got a free SD card out of it because this thing is basically useless. So,
and I think that Greg is not by any means saying profiteering is a good thing.
No.
We are not saying take advantage of everybody, but if you are looking for that new printer, or you might think you want to be in the hobby, now is a good time to look at the marketplace or Kijiji and see what's available out there, because lots of people ordered them for one use maybe, and now they're just going to sell.
And just keep in mind that all the parts on these printers are replaceable. So unless they physically bent something, like even then you can probably replace it, but most of the time it's incorrect assembly like this one, or incorrect maintenance, or just neglect. Like they got it printing once, and then they had never checked how tight, because the first thing you should always do is go through all your eccentric nuts, make sure they're right. Is the bed tight to the eccentric nuts? Get that all done. Is your wiring good? So the other thing on here, which I didn't show, was he replaced a fan for the hot end, and he just twisted the wires together. He didn't even solder them.
Bad.
So
bad.
that was the only other thing. And he must have got like the fan was on by default, because these ones the fan just stays on all the time, and that's the biggest problem I have with this one, is the fans are so noisy. So and
that's a common CR10 issue.
So I'm going to silence it, and maybe that'll be a video.
Silence and
but
CR10.
But other than that, it seems like a great find. I'm pretty happy with it. So my wife was shaking her head, what, you need another printer? I have 6 printers. I think I have a addiction problem.
Need is not the right term. Um, you are now a collector. um, I guess the main focus here too is if you are frustrated with your printer and about to sell it because you are frustrated because it won't print and you've done everything you can, reach out to people um, that are, you can reach out to us, you can reach out to the forums and ask for help and say this is kind of what the problem I'm having and I need help with it, and you will get help unless you're asking on the ever so helpful Ender groups on Facebook right now, because people are just tearing comments apart and being very rude. So if you're on those groups, I would find people in other comments that were helpful for people and maybe private message them without posting to the group. Any thoughts on compiling Marlin for the SKR Mini as 512K? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have thoughts. You just have to change the SKR board to be the 512 one. So if you look into the boards.h, in the firmware, just let me get there.
Hi Dominic.
Yeah. By the way, hi buddy. Yeah, just give us a second. We'll I gotta find my firmware folder here, but we'll get there. I'm sure I have it. Maybe.
Yeah, you know what?
There it is.
I could probably share my screen.
Good. I'm just getting there. Source. Core boards.h. Edit. So if you are doing, you said, what was it? The SKR Mini? SKR Mini. Which version, Dominic? If you know
there's
version.
always a bit of a delay from our questions to your answers, so
I
be
know.
patient, everyone that's watching.
No, I'm going to keep asking over and over. Some say it isn't safe that the SK. Well, here's the thing with that. Safe isn't the right word. If you use the wrong memory size on your board, all that happens is it will dump whatever commands it's trying to send, and you'll get into, to quote the IT crowd, invalid memory.
So is it
so it's not as
Dominic?
bad.
Is it the V2 SKR Mini V2, or is it the SKR Mini 1.2? Because there's a brand new one that's the V2.
Well, it's not that brand new. So if you're saying brand new, it's probably
because they had the
V2,
they had the 1.1, the 1.2, and now they have the 2. So that's why V2. Okay.
Yes, V2.
So I think the
All
V2 is configured in Marlin 2.7, isn't it, for the 512?
It is, but you have to use the right board number. Hold on, buddy. I'm almost there. There we go. So if you are compiling for the SKR Mini E2, let's see here. They've got the Mini E3 V2, which is that one. So I'm going to paste it in chat because I don't want to read all out loud. So this is
I've got the boards file up.
Yeah, it's on, I don't even know what line it's on. Line 301. So that's the actual board that you would use in your Marlin config.
It's not 301 in the one I'm looking at.
Well, no, because I have 6 and you have 7. And then if you look at the actual line where that is, so you could actually just do a search for board BTT SKR Mini, and you'll get to the section.
E3 V2.
Yeah, and then in your ini file for platform IO, you would use this board. Boop. So if you use those two things, and you will get the 512.
Sorry, I'm
board up.
on the wrong screen. 1 second here.
Greg's clicking all the buttons.
Hey, nope. There we are.
There it is.
Okay, so
yeah, so there's the board.
So yeah, if you use that board, you should get the right amount of memory. And honestly, anything over 380 or 356K is more than enough to get all the features turned on that you need. But
And they're
this will do it when you choose this board when you compile.
yeah, and then there is no um I guess there could be safety concerns if your board hits invalid memory while you're printing, but it would just shut
Yeah.
off, would be the result. It would freeze. Um, Lots of times, I don't know if you surf the Ender forums, Dominic, but like, oh yeah, you're welcome, man. Um, if you surf the Ender forums, oftentimes you'll see people post pictures of their screens that are like half blown out with weird characters or like they can't access, and that's exactly what happened. Their boards ran into some sort of invalid memory block and can't output
Yeah,
anymore. So,
and from everything I've read, that Marlin is really good at making the right choices when it's compiling. So if you choose the correct board in here, it'll compile fine. Just remember that
mm,
look at the terminal if you do get any errors, because it's the errors in yellow and red will tell you the setting that is wrong, and you can just quickly change it and fix it. It's actually
yeah,
easier to troubleshoot than people think. A lot of people just don't take the time to look through those because they get a little overwhelmed because maybe
it
they're
will always
yeah,
tell you what's
yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
Always.
And half of the stuff in there in the log you don't need to worry about, but the reason they put it in yellow and red is to attract your attention. And then
Yep.
if you just read it, most likely the configuration.h or configuration.advanced, depending on which one
Yeah, those are usually it.
you're modifying, you can do a search for what it's saying is the problem, and you can quickly find it. So.
What's the so like what on your board, on your actual board, um, you can look at the model number on top of the processor, and if you give that to us, we can double check what it
Yeah.
is. But
In TH3D, I've used their compiler and stuff, and it works fine. I
I'm not sure why they would be insisting. So the when the SQR mini board first came out in the 1 point, I think it was even up to the 1.2. There was certain ones that weren't 512, but I thought according to the release notes, the V2 is all 512.
yeah, I think that's correct. But we can do a quick Google and figure that out.
Yep, we're googling that. I am sure that was the biggest change, and they added a few.
And that's a good little board. So
Yeah,
and
it's a nice
and
board.
don't be afraid to try VS Code to compile it. David has some really good guides on how to configure VS Code and whatnot. It's very straightforward once you've done it once or twice. Like the first time, you might be a little intimidated, but you do not have to be a programmer, and I'm not a programmer. I'm an IT guy. I can read program lines and basic stuff, but I am not a programmer. Anyway.
I
Oh,
am.
we got a new one. Zero
Finally
string.
got a successful
Finally
but
got.
only get a firmware ELF. So if you're not getting a bin and you're just getting an ELF, there's a chance that the board file is set wrong, or the board type is set wrong in the platform.ini.
That's true. And here I'll switch
Um,
back to
yeah, Greg will
my
show you.
screen here and just kind of show you. Where's my screen share? All right. I'm not sure how well this shows up, but so right now I'm in the configuration.h over here. I'm going to close that down and close down the boards, and so get a nice clean screen here. So on your left here, you got the standard configuration, advanced, and config. But if you go down so you basically go up one folder, you've got the platform IO folder. By default, when you load it, it's going to think that you want your board to be the Mega 256. So you have to make sure that you put the appropriate board type in here. So like if it's an SKR 1.4, then obviously you got to change it here. And then it should compile it. And then when it does compile it, where it should put the files, let's see if I can show you where, I think there's a way to go open, find in folder. Where did it open that to? Just got to find the folder that, no, I didn't find in folder, come on. No, that's not what I want. Sorry guys, live demo. Fail.
You can do it.
I don't want to go back to here. Reveal in File Explorer. That's the one I wanted. All right. So in your folder, make sure you go to your PIO folder and then go into Build. And then there will be a folder with the platform type you've chosen. Like in this case, my last build was for Omega 2. And you can see I got a hex file and an ELF file. I got both of them in there. So, but make sure that you've got the platform set correctly. So if this was for SKR 1.4, it would be, what is it, the 17, and they're all listed down here. You just got
1768.
And if it's turbo, it's 1769. So,
Yeah.
so all your architectures are down here. So Cortex LPT 1760X. So it wants you to choose the 1768 for your architecture. So you choose your architecture type and then it'll compile correctly.
For sure. And I guess too, like with these mini boards and stuff like that, they change quite often, unfortunately. And I don't mean like they physically like will change the board, but sometimes the manufacturer's buying a processor they don't quite understand.
Yeah.
But I just I popped to the Big Tree Tech GitHub. I looked at the config H, and that's pasted the board down there for Dominic, and and Zero String says thank you too. So of course you're welcome.
So here's for my SKR 1.4. My environment has to be set to 1769, and then for my CR10 V2, and if I go into here and go into my platform IO, go back up to the top because that's where I want it to be. And you can see it's the Mega 2560. And then, so depending on which board you're compiling for, just make sure you have the board type right and the environment right. And then it will then go. But you also make sure that in your Marlin config, and there's not tons you have to change in these, especially if you get a good example config. Make sure this is the most important one. Make sure whichever one you're doing that you have the motherboard set correctly. And then that will then in turn put the right amount of memory set and everything go from there.
Yep. And if you're ever not sure, yeah, there is an auto configuration in Marlin, Dominic, and it does work okay. But like as Greg said too, like being a programmer, I just do it because that's how my brain works. So, but I mean, the auto config works fine. The one thing I will say is if you are getting conflicting information, now I know that there was a time that TH3D was actually scratching off the model numbers on top of the processors, so you couldn't find out. But if you look on the top of your motherboard, on top of the processor chip, it will tell you the designation of the processor on the board. So for example, and this gets really nerdy really fast, but follow me down the rabbit hole. The BTT board, the mini we were talking about, it has an STM 32F1103R in it, but the important letters that follow are CT6. And the CT6 board is actually the board that's rated for 512.
There you go.
So, yeah, the original, if you stopped at the 103 on that really long string, and who really cares what the string is, but if you stop there, that's where the board would not have 512, and the argument would be valid that it might not have 512, but in this case, totally 512. So, I guess we just got two things left.
Yeah.
And one's quick. One's quick. You guys will like this one. It's called slicers. And what are we using? And is simplified 3D dead? Let's start with the second question. Is simplified 3D dead? You betcha. Don't waste your money on it. Don't buy it. Don't give them more money. Does it work for what they had in it? Yeah, but they are missing so many feature sets now that Prusa and Kira have built in for free. And that's an interesting conversation in itself, because the reason they can build these products for free for us now is Prusa is selling printers, Ultimaker is selling printers, and they use that revenue to roll it back into a product that works really good for slicing. And they're kind enough to share it with the rest of the community. And again, I think that's almost like a loss leader kind of mentality. Like, if we give this away for free, eventually they will buy our printer, which is probably true.
Yeah, it's probably true. And I got to say that I have not opened Kira in 2 months. I've been pretty much doing everything in my Prusa slicer for all my printers. And hey, thanks. Dominic. And it works really well. And the new printer I just got on Facebook, I just took my Ender profile that was working quite well, and all I did was I modified the bed size and renamed it, and it's working great. Like, I think I had to tweak the retraction a little bit, but barely, and it works really well. So I've been very happy, and I'm anxiously awaiting Prusa 2.3.
Yeah, it's coming, and the server's super cool. I can't wait for that, because then that means you don't have to move your printer profiles around.
Yeah, and 2.3, the rumor has it that it's going to have tree support.
It's not a rumor.
And so, I haven't been able to try it. So until I can try it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I had a hard time compiling it. I got it to compile, but it won't launch. There's many errors in the alpha, and they haven't updated the alpha since May.
Yeah. So just be aware that there are some cool stuff on the horizon coming with slicers and whatnot.
Yep.
So.
And Kira is not down and out by any means. Too. Kira and Prusa are great options. They both do different things, but they get the result.
And
I guess.
I'm not dissing Kira at all. It's just because I go back and forth between the two quite a bit. It's just lately the things that I've been printing haven't needed tree support and whatnot, and I'm just getting. I don't know if I just have it dialed in better, but it's tweaked nice. So that's my go-to. That's all.
For sure.
Yeah.
And like Kira 4.71 came out, and lots of people were like, "Oh my goodness, it's broken." Well, no, it's not. There are some issues, but once you read the change log, you can actually see what the biggest issue is. And lots of people were complaining about elephant footing, so they've tried to fix that. But in fixing that, now lots of people are complaining nothing sticks after I updated to 4.71. That's because they've adjusted the initial layer horizontal expansion values for most printers, including the Ender, that will change how much filament is touching the build plate because it slows down the extrusion.
And that goes back to BL Touch, and it goes back to having a very good parallel surface. Like you want
Mhm. Yep.
your everyone calls it leveling or tramming, whatever. But you want
Jamming.
your gantry and your print surface to be perfectly perpendicular, and then get your offset, and then you can just print like crazy, and you don't have to worry about the elephant foot and whatnot.
Nope.
It will. Most people go a little too close because everything isn't quite square to or
Yep.
parallel to each other. So one part of their board doesn't stick as well, so then they get a little bit extra squish. So
For
yeah,
sure. Prusa Slicer has the same settings in it too. It's just by default they are off.
yeah,
So you can actually go in and edit this now that you know that this exists, and then yeah, the level a level surface will fix that
yeah,
issue.
absolutely.
It's a sad day for Kira 4.7
And I think
because they have removed spaghetti and fill. No
so
more.
tragic,
It's gone.
but they at least
Uh,
they still have the fuzzy surface. So
yeah, fuzzy surface makes it better. I'll print a memorial handle after our live stream here to remember spaghetti with fuzzy. Fuzzy
yeah.
spaghetti.
So
Cool.
is there any other? Is there anything you guys want us to, in chat? Like, is there something that you want us to just comment on or chat with you guys on before we switch gears and say our goodbyes and anything else?
Yeah, we'll give a few seconds
Yeah.
there. While we're doing, well, if there are questions, shoot them up in chat. Um,
And
while we're
and
waiting, let's rant about big
well,
screens.
yes. So big screen.
Hey, you guys are welcome. Yeah.
So that that seems to be a trend to going to like 7-inch screens and whatnot. I'm gonna just see if I can show you. I'm not sure if David's doing a video or I'm going to do a video. I
Somebody,
don't think we've.
do you need me to
No,
show it? 'Cause my
oh no,
camera's right there.
I got it ready.
Okay, okay. But yeah,
So
I guess that's a Seinfeld moment. What's the deal with big screens? You don't need a big screen.
so
They just keep making
so
them.
this is my Octoprint big screen. So this is just a touch screen from Big Tree Tech that you can add to your Pi, and then they've customized their own version of. I can't remember what the version was. What was the software called, David?
Of what?
The
Sorry, I
touch the
wasn't paying
touch
attention
screen
briefly.
software. Like this is their custom version of another
Yeah, so
a
it's
forked
oh
version
man. Yeah, it's a forked
of
version. Octodash.
Octodash. So this is their
Yeah.
forked version of Octodash, and basically you can go into here and you can control everything that you do in Octoprint right from the touch screen on your printer. So it's kind of neat. Some of the new printers that are coming from Big Tree Tech and whatnot apparently have the pies built ready. They're
Yeah.
pie ready, so you can switch between the Marlin mode, the touch mode, and then this mode. So which is
Yep.
kind of interesting. So I'm not sure what the trend is, and then there's the regular Marlin and touch screen that's like 7 inches. Like it's
Yeah, like for my money, that Raspberry Pi screen is worth it. That's what I would do
yeah,
because I'm already using Octoprint to control
yeah.
stuff. So I don't I I use the clicky beepy beepy Marlin controller like once in a blue moon now.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but
yeah.
yeah.
So there you go. That's our rant on that. I do have a shameless plug though.
Shameless plug
All right.
time.
So if some of you may have seen that I'm wearing some of our own swag here. It's the eccentric nut shirt that I was ranting about earlier. But if anyone
Plug.
is interested or not, it's fine. You don't have to. It's not like we're making millions of dollars or anything, but I thought it was a cool, nerdy shirt. So we do have it. I put it in the show notes. We do have a Tspring store, and you can have your very own eccentric nut 3D printing shirt if you like. So
Yeah. They're fun. I should have worn mine,
So
so we could have
so
shaved
there you go.
at the
That's
same time.
a shameless plug for our shirts with the eccentric nuts, and you too can be eccentric 3D printing nerd if you'd like. So
No, it's not
no
3D
no
printing
well
nerd. It's 3D
yeah
make.
well ha ha ha. Anyway,
I got you.
so
All right.
anyway, that's just a little shameless plug. Definitely don't need to buy one, but it was kind of fun making the shirt and putting it out there. So if anyone does want one, feel free. I think the only ones we bought are the ones we bought ourselves. So
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, on that happy note, though, you guys, if you're here, you've been here for a while. Thanks for coming, Dominic, Zero String. Good to see you in the
yep,
chat.
thanks guys for joining us and asking questions. And thanks
Hmm.
again, Dominic, for the $4.99. That was very generous. Thank you.
Super chat. Thank you so much. And until next time, all you guys stay safe out there, and gals, of course, guys and gals. I use that as a generic term for everybody, but
Yeah, and
everybody stay safe.
if you have any questions and whatnot, feel free to hit us up on Facebook. Feel free to put it in the chat here and or make some comments, and we'll read through them. If there's something that you'd like us to cover in a future video, we will. I've got some ideas, but I haven't figured out the best way to show them and demonstrate them for you. So I've got to figure out the right format to present them in, and then I will. I've got some more videos coming myself. So, David, you got anything coming up?
Oh yeah, but you know how I roll. I'll decide to record a video and sit down, and whatever pops into my head is what you guys get.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again, guys. Thanks for taking the time. It's just over an hour here, so hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.